Well, hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so just a quick one on the cuttings. These are some cuttings that I've got today from lavender. I'll just take one as an example and I'll show what I'm doing with it. So that's the actual cutting itself, so that's about 4 inches long. As you can see, there's some old wood on there as well, and these have just been snapped off the bush. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, pull back all of these. One of the things you need to remember when you've got cuttings is, you know, through the leaves it's going to be losing a lot of sort of moisture, which is one thing that you need to avoid. So I'm going to be taking most of these large ones off, like that. And what I want to do is leave the smaller sort of new growth on there, like that. Then I'm going to leave some of the sort of the hardwood on, and with a blade onto a piece of glass. I've just cut that at an angle. What can you see? And all I'm going to do is, I've got a pot here with it's got about 50% sand, 50% compost, and the compost doesn't need to be particularly rich, but I always try to use you know, sort of peaty type compost, if you like. And what I'm going to be doing is putting that down the sides. Now the best way to do this, I find, is either with a lollipop stick or a pencil or something like that. Just put that down the side of the pot. The reason you're putting it down the side is because the moisture is going to sit in the middle of the soil and stay away from the side, and what you don't want to do is get this too wet. So I'm going to put that right in like that, just pushing it down. So I'm making sure that there's no air anywhere near the roots, and that'll be perfectly okay like that. So what I'll do is I'll put another one on the other 4 sides. So basically I'll get 4 cuttings in there. Just give it a little bit of water, not too much, and then what you can do is put a plastic bag over this, just to you know, to keep the moisture in. But I shan't be bothering with that. But you can do that, just to that'll potentially improve your success rate with the cuttings. So there are the 4 cuttings in there, and all I'm going to do is I've firmed the soil down reasonably well, and I'm just going to give them a little bit of water. You don't need to give them too much water, you just need to sort of get them started. You basically need to keep them moist. That's the important thing. So as you see, you know, I've not given them a lot of water, and I'll just put them up a quiet corner in the greenhouse and keep my eye on them. What you need to do is make sure they stay moist, and you know, so perhaps water them once a week or something like that. But what you don't want to do is sort of either let them get dry or completely flood them with water. So always make sure that, you know, they're free draining, and that's obviously why you're putting the sand in there. And they should, all being well, they should strike. Okay, so it's time to pot up the hydrangeas, and all I've done is I've put a bit of glass on the surfaces so I can turn them over. As you can see, I've got a bit of a weed in there. They're the hydrangea cuttings that I took at the back end of last year that you saw in a previous video, and basically I've got 5 cuttings in there. And before the plant gets sort of too underway, what I want to do is basically split them up into separate pots, and I'll be putting them on into sort of pots about 6 inches across the top, not particularly deep, and I'll be basically putting them in a normal compost mix. So the first thing to do is basically put your hand on the inside of the pot, upturn the pot like that, and then very carefully just lay it down on the surface, and you'll see that what you can do is, if you just basically very gently tease apart, as you can see we've got gravel in the bottom there, actually, you know, we've got a there's a nut in there. I don't know if you can see that. That's what would that be? It's basically a nut tree. So I'll perhaps put that in a pot, see what happens actually. But there are the hydrangea plants, as you can see. What I want to do is disturb that the least amount as possible. So what I'm going to do now is get some normal compost. I'll just quickly put some in a pot here. And this compost isn't particularly rich. You know, it's just normal sort of potting compost, and I've just put around 3 or 4 inches at the bottom, and I'm not obviously disturbing I've put the ball root in the pot. And now what I'm going to do, there is a little bit of sand mixed in with this, but it's just kind of a peat-based compost. And I'm just making sure there's no kind of air gaps in there, like that. And just top that up. And basically what you want to do is most certainly cover it with soil all the way up to where it was before. So, you know, have it in the middle of the pot, and obviously you want about an inch or so at the top of the pot so you can water it. But what you want to do is aim to get the soil at the same level as it was when it was rooted in the other pot. So there's the first one. So what I'll do now is continue with the rest and pot them all up and give them a really good watering. So there are the hydrangeas. I've planted up all 5 plants. Give them a really good watering, and I shall keep them in the greenhouse now for probably another month or so until all the cold weather's gone. And then what I'll be doing then is growing these outdoors during the year. What I might well do is I'm going to leave them in the pots this year, but what I might do is actually sink the pots into the ground, just to, you know, sort of anchor them more than anything really. And what I will be doing in addition to that is when they grow up to kind of, I don't know, if you know, as soon as they've grown up another 5 inches or so, what I'll be doing is just pinching the tops out, so the you know, they start to bush out rather than just having one long sort of shoot, if you like. What I'll do is I'll pinch the top out so they then start to shoot and form a bush for putting the garden probably this time next year. So I was going to put some more seeds in today. I was going to put the butternut squash in, and I was going to put the winter lettuce in. But we've actually been threatened with frost tonight. So what I don't want to do is put seeds in. Obviously, if we're going to have a frost. From the seeds that we grew, put in a couple of weeks ago, as you can see at the back there, we've got the thyme's come through. Quite small still, but it's most certainly come through. There's the marjoram. Sweet basil is through, and the basil, and there's some more thyme. Obviously the tomatoes, they just haven't come through. It hasn't been warm enough for them yet. So what I'm planning to do now is, particularly because we've got the frost tonight, what I'll do is these little modules here, I'll take them into the house, and I'll put some bubble wrap in the greenhouse tonight to protect the brassicas that I put up. Now I've had a bit of a mixed result with the brassicas this week. These are the broccoli that I put in, if you remember. These are the seeds here, the Sutton broccoli, and they come up really strong. These are the F1 Green Magic broccoli, and every seed struck basically, and they're growing quite nicely. Now with the kale, and the kale was, if you remember, that was this variety here. It's not got the name on there. I'll put the name of the variety across the bottom of the screen in a second, but they haven't come up quite as strong in there. But as I say, you know, it has been, even though it's been warm in the week, it has been quite cold at night. So really, I'm a little bit early for these. But what I'll be doing is seeing how these get on. What I might do is plant a second tray of these if these don't sort of pick up in the next week or so. Okay, so it's that time of year where we need to start putting out the seed potatoes, and basically for a seed potato what you're looking for is kind of something, I hope you can see okay, but that's a little bit smaller than an egg. And what I use is some egg trays, as you can see, and all you do is basically place the potato eyes facing up. And what you need to do is basically at this time of year, which we're just sort of approaching the end of March, you need to be placing the seed potatoes that you've got in a light and cool place, so that you can start to chit them. Now, you don't want seed potatoes that are too large, and really I've done experiments in the past, to be honest with you, where I've put in some large potatoes and I've also put in some smaller potatoes, and really the size of the potato makes almost no difference to the final plant, because in the war, actually, when there was a shortage of potatoes, what they used to do was, if they had a potato, for example, like that, what they'd actually do is cut off the part of the potato with the eye on it and plant that, because it's basically it's the eyes that grow, not the actual potato itself. Obviously the potato will support it in its first few weeks, but and then obviously eat the rest of the potato and just plant the you know, the eye effectively. Now, you can actually get, as you know, as daft as it sounds, you can actually get potato peelings to grow. You know, you don't actually need a potato on the end of the eye, if you like. So the actual size of the potato, I mean, you know, you need a reasonable sized potato. You know, something. These, to be honest with you, are slightly small. I have got some more potatoes that I've saved that are a little bit bigger, but I don't like to have them too big, purely for the reason that that if they are too big, they don't sit in the egg boxes. So I always like to have them kind of this size, because what you don't want to have is, most certainly when you're checking through, any potatoes that have got any damage on, like these. So that one, obviously I put the fork through when I was digging it up. Just put them on one side. I mean, they may possibly be alright. Obviously that one there, obviously had the fork go through it. But you know, I mean, you do want to have them a sort of reasonable size. But I'd say something the size of a golf ball is really the ideal size for your seed potatoes. And what you can do is, when you're planting them in the ground, what you can actually do is put two seed potatoes in the same hole if they are small. And what you're looking for when you're planting them is, if you want to have few large potatoes, what you want to do is knock off all of the eyes except perhaps two of them. If you want to grow lots of smaller potatoes, then leave on all of the eyes. And that's an old trick that I was taught some years ago, and that most certainly works. So if you're wanting to grow sort of, you know, mainly sort of baking potato size potatoes, then what I would tend to do is knock off all of the eyes except for one, and then that one, obviously all of the energy then will go into that one, you know, that one sort of eye or plant, if you like, and then that will grow on and produce a few large potatoes. Whereas if you leave all of the eyes on, what you will get is multiple plants growing from one potato, and then you will get a lot more plants, but obviously because of the nutrition in the ground, you know, you'll get, well, particularly moisture, you'll actually get fewer potatoes. Sorry, you'll get more potatoes, but they'll be much smaller in size because of the amount of nutrition available to the plant per potato, if you like. And really, with potatoes, it's all about moisture. What you want to do is always make sure that your potatoes have got plenty of moisture. You don't want them sitting in water, because they'll, you know, you can potentially get rot on them, or sort of whatever else, canker. And obviously you want to keep the tops of the potatoes dry, particularly in the months of July and and August, because that's when you're likely to get blight. So never water the tops of a potato. You know, you would never entertain the idea of putting a sprinkler watering system onto a potato patch, because most certainly in July, August time, because you will almost certainly get blight if it's in the air and the potato tops are you know, sort of wet. Those are the right conditions where it's moist and where it's humid, and when it's warm. You know, that's when the fungus spores of the blight will most certainly take hold of your potatoes and you know, cause you problems. Now, I'm going to continue to fill all of these up, and I'll show you how many I've got. Now, in each one of these trays, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 30 potatoes in each of these trays, and I'm likely to plant probably about 12 to 14 potatoes in each row. So as you can see, we've got pretty much 2 rows of potatoes in each of these boxes. Now, this year I'm going to plant more potatoes than I did last year, because last year I didn't get a brilliant crop and I've had to buy potatoes this year, and quite frankly, bought potatoes are nowhere near as good as your own. So what I'm going to be doing this year is putting 12 rows of potatoes in, and I'm also going to make sure I've got some spares in here, so that you know, I can pick the best ones out to plant in the ground, and then the others, you know, if anybody across the allotments needs some to put in, obviously I'll have some spares to give away as well. So I'll just continue and get the rest of these done. Okay, so that's all the potatoes in there. As you can see, some of them are really quite advanced already. You know, some of them are almost ready to put in the ground as they are. So basically what I'm going to do now is potatoes, for all of the new subscribers, I only grow kestrel, and these are all kestrel potatoes that I've saved from last year. So these are all of the small potatoes, kind of well, you know, sort of that kind of size, and basically I haven't bought any potatoes now for about 8 years, so I always use the potatoes that I had from the year before, and I've never had any problem with disease. Obviously, any potatoes that you do get with any disease on, or slugs or worms or anything like that, obviously discard them. You have to make sure that all of the potatoes that you've got here are healthy, and you haven't sort of struck them with the spade or the shovel when you or the fork when you've been going them out. And but all of those will be good for you know, to go for this year again. So these will stop in here now for probably about the next 4 weeks or so to chit. And basically what you want to do is keep them in a light, cool area, so that they so they can chit away. And I'll be planting these. I'll be rotivating the ground next week, and then I'll give the ground a couple of weeks to settle, and then fingers crossed, weather being permitting, these will all then go in sort of 3 weeks' time. So it's a nice sunny day. It's hard to believe that you know, that it's going to freeze tonight, but yesterday we had a solar eclipse in the UK, and I actually managed to capture the moon as it went over the sun. So here are a few photographs of that as it happened. So I've finally managed to get the parsnip propagator done. So I've now got plastic pipes. And if you didn't see the earlier episode, basically all this is two pieces of the sort of plastic that you put round houses, you know, the Suffolk board type plastic, and just a couple of bits of wood, you know, sort of holding them apart. And then I've got some board at the bottom just sort of stop these pipes from falling through. And all these is the basically a Coca-Cola can. I'll just put that over so you can see. So that's basically the size of a plastic pop bottle, and basically they're all going in. Sorry, they all sit inside these holes like that, and then plant your parsnips in each one of these. So fill these with compost, sandy compost. Put a couple of parsnip seeds in each one, which I'll be doing in probably in a couple of weeks' time. And then obviously grow your parsnips on in here in the greenhouse. And then where I've got any spaces out in the rows, obviously you could grow them all in here if you wanted to, but I'm going to be growing some outside anyway. So what you'll end up with is a tube like that with a parsnip plant in. And obviously parsnips are notoriously bad for you know, transplanting, because if you damage the tapping root, which is the long thin root that goes down, which forms into the parsnip that you eat, if you kink or damage that or break it in any way, it basically just doesn't grow properly. So if you imagine you've got a parsnip plant in there, you can't disturb the roots. So basically dig a hole then in the ground, and then put that into the ground with the, you know, obviously with the parsnip in, and then just by putting your hand into the pipe like that, you can separate the pipe off. Pull the pipe off, leaving the parsnip in the ground, and then you can just put the ground back around it. And so I think this is going to be an easy way of basically propagating parsnips in the greenhouse, and then being able to transplant them into the ground with you know, without damaging the roots. Now it is a tried and tested, even though I made this earlier on this year, it is a tried and tested method, because for the past sort of 5 or 6 years, what I've done is I've grown parsnips in the allotment. And then basically I've used this method to put, you know, if any were missing or whatever, I'd use these to sort of put in the gaps, if you like. And up until now, all I've had is just some plastic, which I've put an elastic band around or a bit of tape, and grown them in the greenhouse like that, and then basically done that. So this is just a follow-on from that kind of idea. So it's you know, just to make it easy so I can transport them about, and it holds them all together. So that's finally done, so we're ready to put the parsnips in, but I shan't be doing that till next month, so I'll be doing that in sort of April time. So what I'll do is I'll put some seeds in here pretty much the same time, if not the same day, as when I put them out in the ground. You know, as I say, which will be next month, and then you know, if there's any spaces in the rows, I will basically fill up the spaces with whatever I grow in the greenhouse. So, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Please do put any comments, questions that you've got below, and I'll always get back to you with you know, with any questions that you've got. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the new subscribers. I do appreciate your support with this channel. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.